Okay, so I wanted to do this video for some of the guys out there that are really stuck in the deep depths of the dark places of Dark Night of the Soul. I've had quite a lot of emails from people asking questions, but those questions are roundabout. I'm kind of getting the sense from them that they all pretty much mean the same thing. Basically, being stuck and not sure how to get unstuck and move forward a little bit with where you are. So I don't think this video is going to be a very long one. However, it might do if I keep digressing off, which we know by now that I do. So I think where people are getting stuck is they don't know how to surrender to the whole process of Dark Night of the Soul. So any thoughts or feelings that you're currently having, that you're having in a moment of being down, which could be anything from an hour to months and months, years sometimes. So whatever those feelings are and thoughts that are coming up there, I think what's happening to a lot of us is you're attaching to those thoughts. And what attaching to the thoughts looks like is you're asking questions about the thoughts or your feelings. You're asking questions about the feelings. And what that looks like physically is kind of, why am I down like this? Why am I always down? Why did this happen to me? When does this end? When will this whole thing end? And so by doing that, we're kind of attaching to the fault. We're attaching to the feelings. But all that's actually doing is looping it in our head. We're trying to find answers to something that can't be answered. Like we won't know when the end of the Dark Night of the Soul is. That's impossible to know. So it's something that you're not going to be able to answer. And there's a lot of other stuff there that you might be asking of yourself, certain questions like, well, why am I always down like this? That's a question that in the moment you won't be able to answer. That's probably a question that needs to be answered from years and years and years ago, childhood question. So the point I'm trying to make is there that in that moment, you're not going to be able to answer that question. You won't be able to physically find an answer. The only way an answer will appear, or not so much an answer, it's not a string of words that you think, oh, that's it, that's what caused that feeling, like all them years ago. It's more of, there's a lightness, a lightness as in terms of weight, heavy, there's a lightness that sort of comes into you now. It's like the questions that need to be asked about years and years ago, it's like they suddenly start, they kind of answer themselves. In many cases, I think we can find what that is and we can go, oh my God, that was the time when this happened. And I think that left a scar in me that's been doing this. So those questions that we're asking whilst we're feeling down in the moment all the time, we're not going to answer them by continually asking, why am I always down? Why am I like this? We have to kind of surrender to the process of what we need to do, which is allow ourselves to be in that situations. And you'll find there that that is probably where you're more likely to get the answers. Now, if you think you've got real deep, hardcore stuff buried inside you, then I would recommend making sure you've got a safe place around you to do that. And I don't, like I say, I don't want to frighten anyone when I say things like that. It's not about that. It's about feeling safe to go into those areas, to go into those very dark places. I'd done it when I was hiking all over the country. I went into a very, very dark place, despite what most people were telling me to do. I'd done that. I was aware I was going into my dark places. And I stayed with them. And eventually over a period of time, things started to get lighter. Now I can't promise that happens to every single human being on planet Earth. But I do sometimes think, and going by lots of studying that I've done as well, there's other people out there who have got much bigger qualifications in this area than I have, who kind of see it the same thing, that we often run away from the things that we need to address. And what that actually means is we want an answer for something there and then. That's what I was. That's what I was trying to say before about asking the questions that we can't answer. They possibly can be answered, but they need time. They need space. They need quietness. They need you to surrender to a process and just allow your body to do what the body does. Allow your mind to do what the mind does. Allow the brain to work, and these things kind of will appear to you. But if you're asking, why am I always like this? And then it's like you want an answer there and then. That's what I'm saying. Give up with that. Giving up with that is the surrendering to it and just allowing yourself to be down. Because by attaching to the thought, by attaching to the feeling, that is a roundabout way of you saying, I'm staying here until I get this answer. That makes sense? I'm staying here until I get this answer. It's what the looping is doing. It's keeping you in this moment. Whereas if you're just more likely to be, this is much easier said than done as well. I'm well aware of that, guys. But if you're much more capable of being like, okay, I feel like shit. In fact, I feel fucking shit. And just feel shit. Doesn't mean you have to go into some victim mode. It doesn't mean you have to overthink it. You don't have to attach to the thoughts. Don't run away from it by going to the gym and eating junk food, or, I don't know, doing your gardening, masturbating, whatever it might be. Don't distract yourself away. Sometimes we just literally have to just sit, and we've had this wonderful way in our society of really overcomplicating things that don't need to be overcomplicated. And I think it all comes from this general lack of belief we have in ourselves. This general lack of confidence that we will be okay no matter what happens. Some of us like to say that we know we'd be okay, or I'll be all right in any situation, I would. It's just bravado. But the reality is, I think it comes from the whole system, the whole way from when we're born and guided through life, that we're trying to always tick someone else's boxes. We never want to stand out. We always want to be the ones who, we just go along like good little people that we are. We do everything right. We're doing everything correctly. We're good little human beings. It's kind of how I see it, and it's awful. It's awful. And because all it does is, like I say, is create, we never meet ourselves. We never meet ourselves. We've crushed ourselves since we were kids. So how do we now, as things are, the ego's being stripped away from us, how can we expect ourselves to understand what to do, where to go? We're unfamiliar with ourselves. So how can we expect ourselves to give an answer to something that we're asking so venomously? Oh, when's this going to end? Why am I like this? Those thoughts. And that's the whole point of the dark night of the soul. The process is undoing all that system beliefs, the traditional beliefs, the generational beliefs, all that nonsense that's been handed down to us, the nonsense that seems to create a divide between all of us. Why we're all so now, it's all me, as opposed to looking at the bigger picture, which is us as a species, humanity in general. And that's not woo-woo talk. That's how it is. And that's the point where you're going to. But the point where you're going to might also, in you, create a little bit of shame. You might be a bit embarrassed. You might be a bit embarrassed of, am I really going to become that type of person? Unfortunately, guys, whether you like it or not, yes, you probably are. Because that's what we all are. That's what beings are. That's what spirituality is. It's finding out who you are and living life truly and according to you, what your true voice is. And to get there, there's a whole world of stuff that needs to be uncovered from you before you expose yourself. And you'll be exposing yourself to yourself almost. And then that's where the voids start filling up. They fill up. You don't need to go out your way to do anything. The voids will just start filling up. But in order to get there, and if you want to move forward in the dark night of the soul, if you want to go forward just slightly, you have to surrender to the process and kind of accept that that process is there and it's going to happen. You can't make it any quicker as such. The only way you can make it quicker is by totally surrendering to it. So allowing it to be there. Don't keep asking the questions that can't be answered, that can't be answered in that moment. There might be questions that from, like I say, childhood, years ago, that might need answering. But the only time you're going to know if it's a question from childhood is by being in that painful place and allowing your thoughts, allowing your feelings to just come up, to just know that you're there, know that you're in that dark place. Then some real questions might come up. You might get real feelings coming up as to, you might start understanding where things started to happen to you when you was a child. And if at that point you feel like you need some company, you need a safe space to do that, then talk to someone. Talk to a spiritualist. But make sure, with spirit, you want to talk to someone spiritual and stuff like that, make sure you're doing your research on that person, that they are not just out for money. Everyone's got to earn a living, so of course they're going to be charging money. That's kind of normal. But you want to be making sure that these people are not just money-making scams who have read books and can recite those books. You need someone in the spiritual world who's had a spiritual awakening, or been through the dark night of the soul, or is even in the dark night of the soul. They have a good understanding of it. They might have a good way with words, a good way of understanding what you're saying. Because often when we're in that dark night of the soul, our ego is going. It was our old ego that might have needed the therapy, but the new you, the new resolved you, might not need such deep, intense therapy. And you might just need someone who can listen and understands and can maybe make sense of some of the confusion that you're feeling, or some of the questions that are coming up from childhood perhaps. They can help you figure out what they are and find a way for you to move forward from them, and no longer suppressing anything. Was that, like I say, as a whole society, all we've ever done is suppress everything. Put the stiff upper lip on and move forward and just get on with it. That's wonderful if you want to hit a personal best on a marathon or a 5K, or you're in a weightlifting competition or a job interview and it gets a bit awkward. Stiff upper lip comes up. Okay, let's just drive through this. Let's just got to get through this. Do you know that there's a tangible goal? There's a thing there. But when it's in terms of the bigger picture, which is your entire life, which is where you're headed in life, which is your entire essence of a being, we can't put on a stiff upper lip. You have to allow it. You have to be in it. You have to be in it to win it. That was so corny, but it's true. You have to be in it. And I think I said in another video that I've lost my chain of thought what I was going to say. Never mind. I've said it in another video anyway. So that's what I was going to say. So because we would never wantonly put ourselves in a position where we're very down emotionally and in a deep place and where everything is agony, this, that and the other, we wouldn't wantonly put ourselves there. So seeing as we're there by a kind of default almost, or accidentally there, our life has gone that way and we're there, we might as well exploit it. You might as well use it. And don't be frightened of yourself. Our whole life we've been frightened of ourselves. That's the whole reason most of us go to the grave having never done what we should be doing, because we're frightened of ourselves. We're frightened of exposing ourselves to the world and being laughed at or being ridiculed or being judged or being rejected or not being loved or looking stupid. Who cares? Who cares whether or not all of those things happen? Because when you're coming from your true place, there can be, other people can judge, but it will bounce off you. It will bounce off you. But I digress there a little bit. But that's where I think sometimes we can need to go into that dark place. Hold your space, surrender to the process, and just allow yourself to do what needs to be done. And the reason I struggle for words is because trying to say to someone to do nothing is quite difficult, because we always have this feeling that we should be doing something. We should be seeking an out. We should be seeking an answer. There must be something we can do. Sometimes there isn't that thing to do. If you go back to how we evolved over 4.8 million years, when those guys maybe were feeling down and blue and depressed, they had no choice but to just sit, because they didn't have PlayStations and phones and cupboards full of junk food, and they have no choice but to just be with the tribe. So they're surrounded by love, just be with the tribe and just march across the plains. And they were okay. You know why? Because we're here. So I'm not saying they didn't have it painful. They probably did feel pain. And that's the other thing, just as well, there's nothing wrong with feeling down. Like, that's not an error as a human being to feel down, you know. To feel down is something is not right. So that's clearing it out. The feeling down is it's the body saying, I don't want that. Whatever is there, I don't want that. So there you go, I'm getting you out now. And to do that, you need to be down. I think I gave an analogy in one of the other videos that when we cut our skin, we don't sit there looking at our skin saying, come on, get better, heal up, I need you to heal up, come on. It kind of just does it anyway. And that's we've never, as a society, tapped much into that of, I wonder if sometimes we just need to be quiet with ourselves and let this whole process that goes on, let it all just naturally do what it naturally would do. But if all we've ever done is been programmed to suppress and to suit everyone else, we've never known to even think of doing that. Instead, what we tend to do is we have a symptom and we rush to the doctors and we get a tablet. It's never going to do anything. It's like that old saying, you know, that's like putting a plaster on a broken leg. It's not going to work. So I think sometimes we just need to be there and just allow it. And yeah, there's no more I can really say on that front. I hope I don't sound patronising in some of these videos, like really going onto it. But I know, as always, when I was in the real deep side of dark night of the soul, dark side of the moon again, it was awful. I was trying to figure out everything for myself, and I didn't know what I was trying to figure out. And I'd be on these sites and I'd read books and it would say, oh, just surrender, just allow the process to be there. And I'd be like, what does surrendering look like? What does this mean? I will surrender to it when I understand what surrendering means. We all know what surrendering means, like the term of it, you know, oh, no, I give up. We all know that part. But how do you surrender yourself to a lot of pain? And that's where I hope I've cleared that up a little bit in the video. If not, if you want me to go further into depths about that, guys, I always appreciate you being here so you can guide me as much as hopefully I'm trying to help you lot. If you need me to go deeper in that, or you just want some more takes on how I see dark night of the soul and stuff, then just let us know. I'm going to go and put that album on now, just because it's obviously in my head. But anyway, guys, thank you so much for always taking part. Thank you for the emails, for all you guys who are really, really down. I'm rooting for you. I think you know I'm rooting for you. So I wish you all the love in the world. And guys, it's a beautiful day here. I had a lovely walk this morning. So now there's 1 or 2 bits in this video I've got to take out because some real loud noises were happening outside. So I'm going to take them out. And then I'm going to upload this video and wish you all a wonderful week. Thank you so much.